Where did you play in college? Where did you play in college? Oh, okay. You were smarter than I am. I should have gone to a smaller school out of play. I was freshman father at Michigan State. Oh, yeah. I threw batting practice and they loved it.
Go ahead.
They
Started, I guess, huh? Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Spokane County Planning Commission GMA Element Subcommittee. Today is October the 16th, 2025. The public may participate in this workshop today, either in person or remotely by utilizing our web link and telephone conference link, *9 to raise hand, *6 to speak. Individuals are limited to 1 3-minute comment period for any item. Please keep your comments specific to the current agenda item. Chat is not supported. We can introduce our commissioners at this point.
Lonnie Edwards,
Clyde Hossie,
Pete Rayner.
And I'm Stephen Pohl. The operating procedures of this particular meeting are going to be better defined by Scott Chesney. Please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Welcome. We're utilizing a committee format today, which was at your request from earlier in the year to look at these elements in a way that we can focus on one topic at a time. No action is being asked of you, so therefore it doesn't matter whether there's a quorum or not. This is a much more informal approach. It's a matter of whichever members are interested in a particular topic and want to participate in that will be welcome. And we will have, half a dozen or more of these over these next 6 to 9 months. Today, we're focusing on the newest required element in the Growth Management Act from the recent legislative action, which is the climate and resiliency element. You've heard a lot of that from us over the past couple of years. In terms of some of the technical work that's been done, but also how we're talking about trying to integrate that throughout the land use transportation system as well. Today, our consulting team, Cascadia, is here to talk to you or share some of their work and get some comments and deliberation from you. And of course, we're welcome to hear from the public. To that end, let me introduce Mike Chang, who is a partner and principal with Cascadia. He is the principal in charge of our consulting team on this project. And the Cascadia Group, for kind of point of reference, was instrumental in helping to write the guidance for the climate and resiliency element for the Department of Commerce, and are also working with the city of Spokane. So in selecting them previously, we saw the strengths of being able to have that team on our side, also be able to collaborate with our colleagues across the river. So Mike, we'll leave it off to you.
great. Good morning, all. My name's Mike Chang, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm a director and principal at Cascadia Consulting Group. So a lot of the work that I lead is around the climate risk and adaptation and resilience planning today. So really what we are trying to do with this meeting today, and also I'm going to be joined by 2 of my colleagues, Catherine Allison and Carson Brock. And so they'll be presenting a bulk of today's information because they've been the ones really leading a lot of the day-to-day efforts on this project. So the goals for today's conversation is understanding the requirements that the Department of Commerce has for this new element of the comprehensive plan. What we'll also do today is provide an overview of work to date in terms of some of the baseline assessments as well as the community engagement processes and what we've heard so far to inform this process as well. And then the bulk of today's meeting is actually we'll be reviewing a list of the draft goals and policies that we've developed so far in consultation with the Climate Policy Technical Advisory Council, as well as with county staff. So we'll go over each of those goals and policies. You'll see some of the iterations and revisions on how they've been revised to date as well. And then those will be the opportunities for you to also weigh in today. Oh, and then just a summary of kind of like the structure of today's meeting agenda. I think sometime we might also have a break in between just to give y'all some break from the screen time. So in terms of the new climate element, so this was passed, I think, a couple years ago, HB 1181. And what it really does is it requires for the 11 biggest counties in the state to have an emissions reduction sub-element. So with an emissions reduction sub-elements, the two primary goals here are actions that can reduce the jurisdiction's greenhouse gas emissions and the vehicle miles traveled as well. And additionally, there is a required resilience sub-element for all jurisdictions that do plan under the GMA. And so with this focus is including adaptation measures that improves the resilience to different types of hazards such as heat, wildfires, smoke, and flooding. With specific attention to different sectors, and the law specifically calls out 11 different sectors, including from agriculture to transportation to buildings and infrastructure to energy and things like that. Also, what we wanted to call out is the RCW says across both of these sub-elements, there should be an attention to vulnerable communities, which could include groups such as racial minorities, low-income populations, or populations disproportionately impacted by environmental impacts. So that could include outdoor workers, elders, and youth and children as well. So I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Catherine, who's going to provide an overview of updates on this project to date.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine. Great to be with you all this morning. All right, I'm just going to walk us through some of the work that our team has been doing that is providing the foundation for the goals and policies that we will be discussing later on today. I wanted to start with this map. The top part is cutting off Deer Park, sadly, but showing all of the partners that are involved with this work. The policy audit was one of the first pieces that we did. We shared that with you all, the Planning Commission, when it was first completed. That gave us an idea of where things stand currently in the county. We also completed a climate vulnerability assessment. The state worked with the county on a greenhouse gas inventory. Throughout the process, we've had a lot of engagement opportunities, including the Climate Policy Technical Advisory Committee that Mike mentioned. And we've also been working as close as we can with the different partner towns and continue to collaborate with them in the next month on their individual policies. So first up is the policy audit. Just want to refresh everyone. I believe you all saw this a few months ago, but a reminder of what was in it. The policy audit is focused on identifying the existing policies and goals in the county documents and the comprehensive plan, hazard mitigation plan. And we're looking to find what policies the county is already working on that are in alignment with climate resiliency and greenhouse gas mitigation. So we can identify, those opportunities to build and strengthen those policies, and also where some gaps are that we want to add new policies. So the audit identified that there are 82 policies already focused on resilience, but only 23 on emissions reductions and 1 on climate equity. And so this is kind of allowed us to focus on our new policy development. The next part is the climate impacts. This is one of the commerce requirements.
Pardon me, what is GHG?
Greenhouse gases.
Pardon me?
Greenhouse gas.
Green. You guys are brilliant, everybody that comes before us, but there are so many acronyms. I can't
apologize.
really keep them
I
straight.
do apologize. I should
So,
have
I mean,
jumped right in on that.
for us, learners, if you could just kind of always, err on the side of more explanation,
For sure.
I would
course.
appreciate it anyway.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. So in alignment with commerce requirements for the climate element, we're required to have policies that are addressing key hazards and climate impacts in the county. So from our engagement and our technical analyses, we identified these 4 as the main ones to focus on in our work. So wildfire and smoke, warmer extreme temperatures, stream temperature and inland flooding, extreme precipitation, snowpack, and drought. From here, we built off of the climate impacts to do a vulnerability assessment where we kind of take it another level and see where's the intersection between the impacts and key sectors in the county. So we focus on health and well-being, environment and water resources, built infrastructure, and local communities to understand how the impacts are affecting the people, the natural environment, the built environment, what efforts can be amplified to improve resilience as needed. And this has helped, direct where our policies headed as well. Moving on to the greenhouse gas side of things, the state worked with the county on an inventory. This is a snapshot of the emissions for the county as a whole. So it's the main sources of emissions. That first part is a little bit cut off, but the built environment was at 31% of the emission sources. Transportation came in as the highest with nearly 50%, but solid waste and wastewater, refrigerants, and land use are also all contributing to the greenhouse gases in the county. And this is one of the ways that we're looking to see which policies we can develop that would have the most impact in reducing emissions. We also included the emissions for just the county and the county's operations, buildings and facilities being 80% and transportation being 20%. So again, we've developed some policies specifically around ways that the county's operations can reduce their emissions. Next, back to our engagement that we've been conducting throughout this process. We recently concluded a survey in the county where we got around 450 responses. And the survey was highlighting that there is actually a lot of concern for environmental impacts, climate hazards. 83% voiced moderate to extreme concern about wildfire. For example, people are sharing how they were impacted directly, having to change their outdoor activities, having some physical or mental health impacts as a result of different climate hazards. Also shared that top part on the right side there, that's a little bit cut off. Some of their resilience priorities included protecting and enhancing the resilience of natural areas, having more affordable and reliable energy, and emergency preparedness. Oops, that's my bad. And then on the greenhouse gas emissions reduction priorities, interest in transitioning to renewable energy, making sure we have affordable housing, and land use patterns that are encouraging, more compact development. We also pulled out a few of the, there's an option for, open-ended responses from folks. And so we pulled out some things that people were highlighting, concerns about air quality, the Spokane River being dry in the summertime, health problems related to aging, fire danger. Overall, most of the responses we got in the survey were supportive of the county's work on climate resilience and greenhouse gas reductions. We did want to share, for full transparency, we got about 5 comments from some residents who are skeptical of climate change and how the county is addressing it. That comment, or one of those comments, is down in the bottom left there. But overall, a lot of support for this work was shown in the county. I'll pause here for questions before we kind of dive into our goals and policies. Any questions from everybody on any of our technical pieces that kind of laid the foundation of
What happens if we fail?
how existential? In
Pardon?
what frame of mind?
Well, I'm just looking at these. Are these goals? Are these regulations? I know for a fact that my insurance was canceled, my fire insurance, and the replacement was double. I don't know what that's based on.
Mm,
A lot of facts and a lot of facts that begin with BS. And I mean, it's just, how do we fail this test? It's wonderful to have all these goals, but if we got the highest priced gas in the nation and we can't get insurance, what are we accomplishing?
mm.
And then the second on the insurance, how are we going to monitor miles being driven on cars for the gas that's coming off of it?
Mhm.
I particularly don't want to be bothered of how many miles I drive per year.
Great questions.
Why do we have a carbon tax on our gasoline.
I know we do, but I don't want to be monitored on my miles.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in for a second.
Please do.
There's no regulatory structure attached to this at this time. These are comprehensive plan goals and policies. And what that means in terms of reducing vehicle miles traveled is much along the discussions we've had about housing. If we're able to build more housing closer to where people live or work and play, so to speak, then there's going to be, by definition, less vehicle miles traveled from Kootenai County to Spokane County. And so if we look at those, destination surveys, if we look at how we build our housing and our employment base, there's an inference that there's a reduction in travel because of that. But there's nothing that is anticipated that is a truly regulatory scheme here.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Other questions?
No further questions, I
All
guess.
right.
Maybe there are, I don't know.
We'll have more time for if anything else comes up, we can always go back. But I'm going to bring up my colleague Carson to walk us through our first set of goals and policies.
Good morning, everyone. Hold on, let me just a little taller. Super excited to be here with everyone today. My name is Carson Brock. I'm a project coordinator at Cascadia Consulting Group. Super excited to be on this project and here before y'all today as a former Spokane County resident. I grew up here, so super excited to be working on this project. Perfect. So yeah, we're going to go over some of the goals and policies in the climate element. So we have this two subsectors of the climate resilience element and then the climate greenhouse gas reduction element. And just to kind of highlight some of the methodology that we had, Catherine kind of spoke on this a little bit earlier of doing an initial audit of current county policies and identifying gaps and opportunities where the requirements by Commerce could be expanded on climate resilience and greenhouse gas reduction. And we use several sources. Commerce developed a menu of measures of existing policy recommendations as a baseline for jurisdictions to use, and then looked at other key resources like the climate vulnerability assessment that we worked on, the greenhouse gas inventory, and also the community survey that just ended a few weeks ago. We've also been working very closely with city staff and tribal representatives and the SIPTAC to develop integrated feedback throughout the whole process on the vulnerability assessment and also the all the pieces of developing the goals and policies. And then as Commerce requirement, we're supposed to assess co-benefits and equity implications for all of these goals. And
What is SIPTAC?
the climate policy or the Climate Policy Technical Advisory Committee, I believe.
Oh,
And
It's one of the groups we created to bring people in with some subject matter expertise. There's one for climate, there's one for open space, and there'll be one for housing coming up as well.
got it. Thank you.
And then here's a list of some of the co-benefits. This is a requirement by Commerce. So these are the different co-benefits that the goals potentially have from the greenhouse gas emissions reduction side and the climate resilience side. As you can see, which is good, all the climate resilience co-benefits are on each policy from the climate resilient element, enhances resilience, and then same for lowers emissions for the greenhouse gas reduction side. So this is just a way to see different co-benefits and ways that the policies and goals can help other aspects that aren't directly related to climate resilience or reducing emissions.
What do those numbers mean? I don't get it. What's a four? Well, there's four benefits?
So
What does that mean?
yeah, so for the first example, there are 4 policies within the current draft version of the climate element in the greenhouse gas reduction side that builds on community knowledge around greenhouse gas reduction in the different sectors of the goals that we've identified in the policies, and the same for the other side for climate resilience. There's 12 policies that will have the co-benefit of helping building community knowledge around addressing climate hazards like how to be prepared for evacuation, or what types of personal equipment you should have if it's a smoky day in terms of, air quality and stuff like that, of building knowledge. And all of those numbers are how many policies address that co-benefit specifically.
Oh, okay.
And then, so this is just a reminder of the resilient sub-element requirement set by Commerce. For the resilience side, at least one climate resilient goal and policy will address one climate hazard. And then within each of the 11 Commerce identified priority sectors, which you'll see listed on the goals, the sectors are like health and well-being, emergency management, transportation, et cetera. And then an attention to vulnerable populations, like Mike mentioned earlier, attention to vulnerable populations for people who often experience the first or the worst consequences of climate impacts. This includes low-income populations, people with disabilities, outdoor workers, et cetera. And as a reminder for our plan today, we are going to go through the resilient goals and policies first, because we did see a lot of excitement from the community around the resilience policies, and then Catherine will lead us through the greenhouse gas reduction policies. So obviously there is a lot of words that are about to be on the slides. So you should have gotten a packet, hopefully, of some of the existing goals and policies. We have accepted some red line edits from tribal representatives and also county staff. So you'll see those edits. We're beginning to incorporate that feedback now, and we also have that Climate Policy Advisory Committee next week. So we're continuing to incorporate feedback. So just want to preface that the goals and policies are still in draft form. So nothing is even close to being finalized.
Before we go too much further,
Yeah.
excuse me, sorry, Lonnie here. Speaking of like smoky conditions and everything, and looking at the types of stuff with climate, where we can, and I don't know if this is off base or not, my apologies if it is, but what about looking at other things? I mean, obviously everything boils around housing and cleaner energy and everything, but what about managing our forests a little bit better, and cleaning them up and logging a little bit more, and to help reduce wildfire risk in our state, instead of, because when I go and look at things, I some of this stuff is, to me, a little bit more red tape around building if we don't look at the outside of things as well. And I might be getting off base. My apologies.
No, that's a great point. And I will say that some of the policies and goals in the resilient section do start to cover the base of forest management. There was a lot of support around better management of surrounding properties in the county for mitigating the risk of wildfire. So wildfire is obviously a big hazard within the county, as well as wildfire smoke. So we do have a significant amount of policies that start to build up the county's goals and policies in order to better mitigate managing forests and the mitigating, potential wildfires. So we do have some policies around there, and definitely open for more feedback on how we can expand those efforts. But it's not just, we don't have policies that are just related to smoke implications. We also have policies related to wildfire and forest management as well, and emergency management related to all those. But we can dive into those.
Stuff like that, but if they have better cleaned up forests and more manageable trees and things, more logging and cleaner sites, we're gonna have less wildfires when lightning strikes and things like that.
100% agree.
Does this, you're part of the study? The Los Angeles fires pointed out some mechanical problems with getting water to the fire site. Seems like Spokane's got a lot of one-way water. There's no redundancy in a lot of places. Is that taken into account anything we're doing, or is that outside our scope?
I would say For the most part, so the climate element is kind of a jumping point, and as a part of the comprehensive plan process. Hopefully, when we develop these goals and policies, right, more programs and plans will be made to better mitigate those issues. It seems something that could be expanded upon potentially in like a hazard mitigation plan or emergency management plan. But we do address all of the main hazards and how they potentially intersect with one another. So drought is obviously a prevalent hazard within the county. So there are drought-related policies in terms of how that corresponds with, water usage and emergency management and preparing and putting out fires. But in terms of like a full analysis of like that specific issue, that's not specifically in the climate element. That's because it's not directly a requirement.
Pete, if I could, this is one of those areas where the climate element starts out and studies things on its own, but the question you asked is integrated back into the land use and urban growth area discussion. We are working specifically with Medical Lake on this exact thing because the fires there along Silver Lake had no fire suppression. There was not public water. There was no, there were no hydrants. There was no, fire flow available. And so the idea is, can we put in a water system that helps when those build back, that there is a system of redundancy in place? And the same thing with the roads around that lake. They're all one way. And so you couldn't, even if there were fire apparatus in there, they'd get stuck and they wouldn't be able to serve that. So when we're identifying some of these hazards, what we're also talking about are what are some of the possible solutions that can go into the plan with us and our partners.
Any other questions before we move on to the goals and policies? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for all the questions. We really appreciate getting all the feedback. And Mike is recording all that feedback behind us as well. So here's an overview of some of the resilient policies. As you can tell, they're out of order. So we have greenhouse gas first, but we thought just to make sure we have enough time to kind of go over the resilient section first. So I'm not going to read through all these goals, but we will go through each section. But the bolded is kind of an example of some of, like the key themes of what the policies go over. So goal 6, strengthening Spokane County's critical infrastructure. Goal 7, working to enhance public health and emergency management. 8, working on agriculture, working lands and natural ecosystems. Goal 9, restoring and expanding Spokane County's ecosystems, really focusing on this one on like water resources and forest management. And then goal 10, partnering with communities and organizations to help inform and foster a more engaged county and general public. And as an example, here's for each of the policies that we have, how many of the specific climate impacts that each policy addresses. This is a requirement by Commerce. So we see that we have some at the top, like flooding and landslide policies as the highest at 21, some drought policies at 18, wildfire and wildfire smoke at 17, extreme heat 16, community well-being 16, and then reduced snowpack at 8. And then obviously as we update and add more policies, we will update this count as well for the final deliverable to Commerce.
For the state?
Okay. Yes.
Because fire is our biggest problem, not flooding.
Yeah, no, so these are just the amount of policies that we have currently, but not necessarily in rank of what is the biggest hazard specifically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. And then just as we're going through this, we will have some time for some additional discussion for both the resilience and the greenhouse gas policies and goals. But here are just some ways to provide feedback. Obviously, we're looking for any type of feedback, but specifically when we're building like a comprehensive plan of goals and policies, we really look to make sure that the wording is right, assessing feasibility and if the goal and policy is feasible for the county to implement, are there specific goals or policies that are more urgent to prioritize, any gaps that the policy is missing, and then attention to vulnerable populations, just highlighting that that is a Commerce requirement and what do these goals and policies impact and how do they intersect with vulnerable groups within the county. So with that, we will start going into the goals and policies. I will not read through all of them, so sorry for the for the amount of a text heavy on the slide. But as you can see, the red line edits are some of the edits that we have gotten from county staff, as well as someone from the tribe. We will continue to integrate and edit these as the process goes on. But for this specific goal, goal 6, we have policies focusing on updating building standards to address climate hazards, improving energy reliability through undergrounding power lines, establishing more backup systems for critical services, strengthening water systems to reduce waste and ensure long-term access to clean water, expanding green infrastructures like parks and open space to help manage stormwater, supporting establishing more cooling community hubs for hot days, and building safer and more reliable transportation systems that can withstand future climate impacts and serve residents for emergency needs when climate hazards or natural hazards come forward. So I'm going to go through all of these really quickly, and then we can open it up for discussion. There we go. So goal 7, some of these policies really focus on strengthening emergency management to these specific climate hazards that we talked about earlier on the county. So assessing more emergency preparedness, alert and communication systems, housing and recovery, cooling and heat relief for residents. And then you can see some of the red line edits on the first policy that we have there. And then going to goal 8, we have currently 8 policies working around working lands in agriculture and forests. These policies cover key themes like climate smart agriculture, food security and local markets, farmland protection and preservation, ecosystems and open space protection and expansion, forest and land management policies, and then tree canopy and urban and rural greening policies as well. And then goal 9. Goal 9, we have 6 policies related to tribal partnerships and cultural resilience. We have some policies related to habitat and watershed restoration and protection, ecosystem, overall ecosystem health, collaboration with restoration, open space and parks again, and then water security and active drought planning for the county. And then going on to goal 10, this is our community engagement goal. We have policies within this goal that focus on community engagement and equity, inclusive outreach and education, health and safety programs, wildfire preparedness education, and then water conservation and drought readiness education as well for this specific policy. So I'll go back to this, and I think we have how much time? 20 minutes. Oh, okay. So we have 20 minutes for discussion on this topic. So we can go back to any of the specific goals, or if you have questions about specific policies, now would be a great time to ask this.
And Mr. Chairman, you're welcome to take comments from the public at any time.
And online, we're online, no? Okay. If anyone would like to enter into this conversation, that would be the best time to do that, or anytime really. Just raise your hand, come on down, and we'll let you talk. That's just a standing request. So that's why we're here. We're all trying to understand this workshop. Thank you. Good point.
Stephen, I have a question. I really appreciate what you've been covering, and I'm looking for someone or something. As a business person, I'm always listening. What I'm not hearing is, how are you going to implement this and financially pay for it and keep us to build affordable housing? Have you approached that, or is that not part of your agenda?
The specifics around affordable housing is not specific to the climate resilient element. There is the urban, like the housing element that will be a part of the larger comprehensive plan that I believe either have come and spoken to you or will be coming to speak to you later. I don't know, Scott, if you have anything to add specifically to that.
Then can I ask, do you have an economic figure in mind to implement these total
Yeah.
policies?
Yeah,
And
so
how the county can handle it?
Yeah, so a part of the edits to these specific goals and policies is establishing how the county wants to specifically implement or have these policies be enacted, whether that is, establishing collaboration or groups or, different like rebates or financial indications. It really is up to the county to determine what is best for each specific policy. But a lot of the policies as we have them now in the language, it's develop and implement programs or partner with existing entities to help expand projects or specific initiatives, or it's kind of the starting point to identify where those needs need to be met specifically.
Are you going to be at the completion offering to the county some guidelines of how to establish that value and where they should be looking and how to accomplish that?
In terms of like implementing, I will refer, I'm not 100% sure on that specific question, but I will refer to Mike if you have anything. Perfect.
That's a great question. As part of this, and also as part of Commerce's requirements, we're also developing an action plan in terms of implementation. So part of that is getting at least a high level things like cost benefit assessments, as well as identifying potential funding resources, both in terms of the different types of revenue streams, such as different state, federal grants to help implement, or other types of financing, such as municipal bonds, things like that. At this point in time, I think like the action plan itself, we're not being overly prescriptive because, like Carson said, a lot of the policies within the climate element are fairly general in terms of like develop programs and policies, but it is a first step in terms of providing the county resources in terms of what are the different directions to help finance and implement these policies as well.
And
Private sector company. Pay, how are they getting extra money? Pay for.
if I could jump in, our intention for this comprehensive plan is to look at these as guiding statements in a directive fashion, not in a regulatory fashion. In other words, carrots, not sticks. The private sector, especially construction, is very adept at looking at new techniques, at new things to happen and finding ways to pencil that out. Sometimes it's the way of changing your business, but if you're going in a direction and it provides a benefit, we are all, it's much easier to implement that if it's done through incentives. And I don't mean financial incentives, but incentives for the business to make itself pencil out when these things happen. And that, it could be just less risk involved there. Some of it may be quantifiable, some of it may not be. But our intention in this plan is to not have as Mike said, a prescriptive regulatory structure. You must provide defensible space around a structure in a forest. That's not going to be in there. It's going to be, this is an idea that you might consider, and your insurance company will probably like it. So it's our intention to put these out there as guiding statements, not as regulatory directives at this stage. With anything related to the GMA, the legislature can change its mind in an instant and create things that are more regulatory. But in our case, we're looking at being more guiding principles.
And I will also add too that some of the policies that we have identified, it says an example of some of the languages that we use is like implement when feasible, just to add that clarification that we're not saying every single specific thing has to be to this one standard, but if feasible, this is, a recommendation or a guiding policy that we would like specific things to be addressed in that manner, but.
Run someone online. Paul.
Good morning. Morning,
Yes.
commissioners. Good morning, staff. Good morning, consultant. I have a couple of more general questions. One, when will the Cascadia presentation be available on the website? I find its presentation to be more cogent or easier to deal with than the policy document that's already there on the website. Also,
is the climate policy TAC finished, or will it be continuing to be a sounding board?
Paul, this is Scott. The information on the screen will be up within a couple hours of the Planning Commission's adjournment today. And the technical teams will continue to meet through probably June or July of next year until they all kind of come together with recommendations for staff to bring forward for public and PC consideration.
I don't, has the system cut me off from my audio? No.
No,
I would like to be included in the climate policy hack if possible.
absolutely. We'll put you on we'll put you on the list and notify you of upcoming things, and also make sure you can see where resources are from past activities.
Okay. And then finally, I find the goal statements to be actually the key to the public's understanding of these things. And the layman is going to look at comprehensive plans are kind of exotic things. And I just find that the goal statements need to be absolutely clear. And I have to tell you that I have some real problems with some of the goal statements, which I will share with the TAC when I get an opportunity.
Paul, we welcome your comments.
Thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was Paul Kropp. He's an active participant in our county government, a conservative citizen. Always happy to have his input.
Yes, yeah, thank you for those comments. Any other comments or suggestions? Is there specific sectors or goals that you folks would like us to edit or change, or really identified or resonated with you as a part of the Planning Commission before we dive into the greenhouse gas reduction section? Any other comments?
I think this is a duplicate of some of the stuff Scott's already shared, but I'm not making this as a motion, but I would propose that shall not be allowed to be used as a word in any of these policies.
Shall?
Shall
Shall.
not be allowed, should, and would consider, but give a bureaucrat a shall and we got a problem. Especially when we're talking passing our goals.
Awesome. Thank you for that comment.
We shall take that in consideration.
Well,
Yes, we shall.
Go ahead.
I mean, the floor is yours. If you have any specific questions or recommendations, or any goals or policies that you specifically liked or didn't like, we're continuing to, like I said, update and enhance these based on community and staff and SIPTAC feedback. But yeah, I don't have anything else specific to say unless there's other comments that y'all want to make.
And not just reacting to what the team has put forward, but do you see, or do you think there are missing things? Are there topics or are there subjects that have not been addressed in here that you think are important?
And we can go back to any slide too. We don't have to stay at goal 10 specifically. If there's a specific goal that you would like to have some more time to look at.
And of course, recognize this is the first time we're exploring this in depth. You've got the policy papers, you'll have the slideshow. If you come up with other thoughts and comments, you know how to reach us, and we will incorporate that in future work as we bring it back to you. So today is not your one and only time to weigh in on this.
This is a process of marinating our thoughts as we look at all these points. So
yeah,
we're not as familiar with this body of knowledge as you in Cascadia. So well done.
No worries. Yeah, and definitely we'll take any feedback after the meeting as well.
I would also like a little bit more clarification on, like on your 10.5 down on the bottom, to clarify more on free resources because somewhere somebody has to pay for those.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. And I will also add to, in the policy document, there is a separate side for rationale for each policy that we've developed as well. So the rationale won't specifically be in the final document of the climate element, but can be a guiding source for the county as they're working to implement, to kind of find like the North Star of the policy specifically and how it relates to the requirement in the community as well. So we can definitely add, if we don't add specifics to the policies, we can definitely add that also to like the rationale that the county will have as well.
Any other comments? Anyone from the audience? Anybody online? I've heard from Paul. Paul, okay. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll pass it to Catherine. She'll go over the greenhouse gas reduction section as well.
All right, I'm back. Similar to what Carson walked us through, we have the second sub-element, which is a requirement for Spokane County to include policies and goals related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the requirements for this sub-element are to reduce total emissions and per capita emissions, utilizing different mitigation strategies to address emissions primarily from transportation, buildings and energy, and zoning and development. And so we're going to go through the goals. We have 6 or 5 goals for this section as well, related to the transportation network, affordable building and energy efficiency, maintaining rural and urban community character, and supporting housing supply and density, sustainable agriculture, and our 5th goal around reducing waste and encouraging composting and recycling. So goal 1 is to expand the county's transportation network, improving safety, efficiency, and connectivity. Some of the key policies in this goal are around expanding bike paths and greenways to expand low emissions travel, partnering with different agencies around the county to expand transit with a focus on equity, coordinating different transit and bike plans to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled, expanding electric vehicle charging and subsidies. And part of Commerce requirements are to report every 5 years on emissions. And so we want to include a policy around tracking and measuring emissions. Our second goal is around affordable housing and building energy efficiency. So some of these policies are to incentivize solar and wind energy to help diversify the energy supply, providing incentives for energy efficient and affordable housing, supporting upgrades, particularly in commercial and industrial buildings, requiring energy efficiency in new buildings and in retrofits, and updating land use rules to support smaller scale renewable energy projects.
Mr. Chair, again, if I could interrupt for a second, the idea of both improving commercial and non-residential structures is not new, but it's being identified here in this context. A couple of years ago, the county adopted what's called the CPACER program, and that allows building owners to recover energy costs that they would not otherwise do through a different kind of financing structure and a different kind of tax structure that provides an avenue for, in a sense, less expensive money to retrofit an older building with more efficient HVAC, for example. So in this case, we've got an implementation tool on the books that can address some of these things directly. We could do it tomorrow.
Thanks for that comment, Scott. And you raise a point that, similar to how I mentioned in the policy audit, our first step of the project was to identify existing county policies and goals that align with the climate element. And so one of the places we look, some of these policies might already be really easy to implement or to act on. They might already be in existence, and that's done intentionally to make sure that, it's some of these policies are easier to implement, to get some momentum going, make some of those first steps so that we can keep building on existing work. Our third goal is promoting land uses that maintain the rural and urban community character while also increasing housing supply density as a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve transit action. So these policies are around multimodal transit near housing and commercial centers so that people aren't as dependent on cars to get around, supporting mixed land uses, having housing and amenities co-located, and maintaining stable urban growth areas, encouraging infill and protecting those valuable rural and resource lands. Goal 4 is on sustainable agriculture as a way to reduce emissions by increasing carbon sequestration and conserving rural and sensitive lands. So some of the policies we're looking at here are around exploring different ways to manage natural lands and forests for carbon storage, ways to enhance carbon sequestration, et cetera.
What's an example of carbon sequestration?
Yeah.
Planting more trees or?
Planting more trees is an example, anything that will pull carbon out of the air and ideally put it into the ground where it will stay for a while. There are projects that take fallen trees, especially after a wildfire. You can, like biochar projects, take trees, bury them underground where they can't decompose and release methane, but they kind of are holding on to that carbon that is already in them and, you know, putting it into the ground. There's projects that seek to inject the carbon directly into bedrock. There's a lot of like very elaborate, very sciencey ways, very techie ways, very low techie ways, planting cover crops so that the soil is more nutritious and is automatically just like pulling in more nutrition, which requires less fertilizer when you're growing crops, for example. So there's lots of different ways to enhance the natural systems that are already occurring and sequester carbon that way.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, our last goal in the greenhouse gas sub-element is to advance programs and advance programs and initiatives that decrease greenhouse gas emissions while reducing waste and encouraging compost and recycling. So these are focused on how can we support businesses and institutions in their compost recycling programs, expanding composting and recycling and waste education to help divert waste from the landfill to composting or recycling, and reducing landfill waste in general by expanding landfill capacity, staff support, and ability to take on additional compost and recycling. You'll see on policy 5.3, we have a recommended edit to focus specifically on glass. So that's something that we've heard and are considering in our policy edits. And so with that brings us back to our discussion time on the greenhouse gas reduction sub-element policies. Welcome any feedback or questions. We can also return to any other part of the presentation that you might have questions on.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, kind of going back to the last goal on recycling and composting, it sounds very simple, but there are business opportunities in that. Those of us that live in the city of Spokane have seen the recycling program cut back because there's no market for those materials. It's now a pickup every 2 weeks instead of every week. And some of that was being shipped out to places, notably China, that are now not accepting some of those recycled goods. If Eastern Washington can have this as an accepted policy for development, there's a business opportunity for someone to say, I can make use of that glass or that paper or the other things. And about the one thing we do recycle very well here is paper. Inland Empire Paper, among others, produces a lot of recycled paper. But there are some business opportunities that are like underlying some of these goals and opportunities that in an economic development chapter, we can start talking about to lay that out there for people that might not see it when they read through the plan itself. It's like, get to this. It's like, yeah, look, these are things that can happen in Spokane County, and here's why. These are the assets we have that you can make something happen. So again, back to the idea of of all of this being an incentive structure, not a regulatory structure, there are multiple ways to take advantage of some of these to try to make them real.
I'm looking at the yellow at the bottom, vulnerable populations.
Mhm.
We've already priced half our population out of housing. It's a fact. Takes 35, 40 bucks an hour to afford a median priced house. And it seems to me like there's a football penalty for piling on, and I think we need to be careful.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience online? Additional comments from our commission? Scott?
It is your agenda.
Pretty comprehensive. Thank you. Yeah. Paul? Okay, Paul, you're on. Paul, you there?
We have to go through the unmute routine. Paul Crop again.
Yes, Paul.
That's a really great slide. That shows what are the discussion considerations now and in the future. And I was looking at vulnerable populations as well. Regardless of the intention, I read the intention of the legislature is to have that consideration in order to reduce the in order to increase the availability of services and housing. So that's something that does need a close look throughout both of the sub-elements. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
I know you guys want more time to look at all of the goals and policies. So hopefully you'll consider some of these questions as you're reading through them, looking for anything that we might have missed, anything that needs extra clarification, more emphasis.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, looking at recycling a bunch of stuff and, you know, inland paper and everything like that, and, you know, thinking of different companies and stuff coming in to be able to recycle all these other things that other companies aren't taking now. What kind of greenhouse gases or anything do these factories or renewable places put back off out when we, you know, trying to be clean in one area here, and then we do another factory here, we're gonna have things that are melting things down, or, you know, to be able to get back to these things. Is that a thought at all, or I don't, or am I just way off base?
Did you want to?
Well, we don't have any smelters left in the county, so the era of smokestack industry is probably over for what we're doing. And on a more national scale, through the US EPA and the Clean Air, Clean Water Act, a lot of traditional manufacturing and factories that still produce iron and raw materials all use scrubbers and things in their emissions to address that. So some of that's been done on a national scale. I think here what we're talking about is on a much smaller scale. Can we put things in an area where it takes less trips to get there, less supplies trips to get there, less employee trips to get there, and incrementally drop some of these rates on recycling? And we talked about that as a business line. Certainly that would come with a set of don't make it worse policies. If you're going to do something to improve this, don't bring it in one door and make a useful product out of these materials and then send something bad out your back door. So I think those would be more on a case by case basis, but we're certainly aware of them.
Like if we give, for example, I drive that way quite a bit.
You know, you see all the fumes and stuff go back up off, so that's all clean.
Well, I can't speak to it specifically, but certainly they are sort of constantly in the news for techniques to improve both their emissions and their discharges into the river. So those are all being monitored, and
Okay.
presumably they are at levels that are acceptable in the EPA's standards, but I don't know the specifics about them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but you raise a good point that one of the requirements along with the greenhouse gas sub-element, in addition to reducing emissions, it's the caveat of without increasing emissions elsewhere. So when we are creating policies to suggest, divert waste out of the landfill to reduce emissions, when we're pushing that to recycling or to composting, we have to make sure that it's not going to then immediately just push it somewhere else. So,
We still have semi trucks getting all that. Cause you've done it places,
mhm,
rubber that gets made, tires and oil,
mhm. Yeah. So how can we streamline those operations, condense them, co-locate them with others? Sometimes it helps to have like a smaller operation, like multiple smaller operations. So it's, if you have a compost facility, you have several close by to people, so there's less traveling. And then the compost is like more, it's already there where you need it, for example.
Amazon or something, because they're not small.
Hmm.
They have trailers, a lot of tires,
Hmm.
things like that.
Yeah.
How do you get the smaller company?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Can we?
Maybe.
Oh, is there another speaker?
Sorry,
Feel
I'll
free
go
to-
quickly over conclusions and then we can go to a break. So, like we said earlier, these are currently the draft policies, and so we are getting a lot of
Well, let me
feedback.
just stop you right there. I'd like for Lonnie to be here.
Oh, great.
Can we just hold
Great,
off
thank
for a bit? Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, 10 minutes would be great. Thank you. Sorry for the elongated time, but
For those who are participating via Zoom, the Planning Commission Committee has declared a 10-minute break. We will not have the video on, but we will be here and we'll be back about 10 minutes after 10.
Can we restart our session?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Michael? Thank you, by the way. We want to hear precisely your conclusion, so we don't want to miss anything. So you got the floor. You have the floor.
We have staff who provide feedback this month. We are also presenting policies for the advisory commission on Monday. So after we present these three staff, the policy will be coming back to the planning commission as well, which is the commissioners for adoption. So just kind of outline next step, earlier in the past, the draft.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
Thank you very, very much for what you're doing, and you're doing great and so forth. Can I throw out from me only personally? Common sense has to be applied here that I haven't heard yet. I think I made my comment. I have been in business all my life. I'm at my end of my road. And the point is, I look at business and it's not getting easier, and common sense still does apply. How will you apply it? You're the genius.
Comments online? Paul? Go ahead, Paul.
Lori's hasn't turned back on the microphone at the podium, so I can't hear what he's saying in response to your comments.
Great. Can you hear now? Apologies for that.
Yes.
Yeah, so the timelines in terms of next steps. So we are gathering feedback from county staff through the end of this month. We'll be going to the Climate Policy Technical Advisory Council next week, and they'll be providing their own feedback throughout this. Eventually, after we integrate all the feedback from the different types of stakeholders we're engaging through part of this process, we'll be coming back to the Planning Commission and eventually the County Board of Commissioners for adoption and subsequent implementation.
And in that kind of upcoming time, some of you were at our first community event of this cycle last night out in the East Valley. And we've integrated a couple of the climate slides into the discussion of the EIS and the bookends of all growth alternatives, because they will factor into filtering those down. We've got 3 more of those in the upcoming week, one on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, North, South, and West Plains. And so we'll be continuing to gather comments on all of this from our community members. And it is, as Mike has alluded to, we will be back with you on the 30th with a summary of what we've heard, what we've learned, your comments and others, for you to give us some guidance, as well as to give us some of your concerns or the challenges, so that we can brief the Board of County Commissioners on November 3rd. So there's a lot going on in the next 2-3 weeks that will help guide our growth strategies and help and give this a chance to be fully integrated within that over, say, the next 8 months.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to compliment your staff for providing advanced copies of this. I read those on my office computer. It was helpful because it kind of sets the stage for what's to come, and then splendid explanations and presentations, kind of the icing on the cake that bring it all, into focus, and the opportunity to offer feedback. So thank you. Well done, well presented, staff and Cascadia. So We do have a quorum today. I'd like to just note that for the record. We have 4 commissioners here, so thank you all for being here. I'm not sure we need to gavel this out, or do we?
It's, no, you can adjourn at your leisure.
But I don't want to forestall I don't want anybody to feel like they didn't get to, as one last chance, people from the audience, people online, commissioners, now is the time to say what you need to say.
Our next meeting is scheduled for when? And what will it be covering, or do we know yet?
October 30th. And it'll be a restatement of your your September 11th meeting covered the EIS alternative 1 approach, which was the infill, more density approach. The October 2nd meeting talked about the UGA boundary modification approach along with the neighborhood planning concept for zoning. Those 2 bookends are what we're taking out to the public over these next couple of weeks, integrating this. And when we come back to you on the 30th, it'll be to say, where's your comfort level with these bookends and how do you want to narrow them? What are your recommendations as policy guides to narrow them? And then we'll take that to the board the following Monday.
Thank you.
Would it be possible to get a 2 or 3 minute explanation of where we stand as opposed to where the city's standing and how these are going to come together? And
Of course, but what
Well-
comparison of what?
well, I wish I could answer that question because I was more informed.
Okay.
But what's the city's plan? Is it Proposition 1 and we're Proposition 2? I mean, what kind of a collision are we heading into here, and
For the
how do we
growth
prepare
alternative?
for it and sort it out? And
Well, I'll offer an editorial comment to start, and that's that I think we've learned when we're doing these periodic updates, which we will be doing a 5-year look in, and then this is on a 10-year cycle. But there's a couple of things. One, the cities and counties are treated equally when it comes to all of these elements. So for example, trying to plan for housing by income bands is a very different way of thinking for urban areas that are cities than it is for more rural and suburban areas that are counties. So that it's a different approach. And secondly, more directly, the counties should be on a 6-month stagger because we're waiting on the cities to tell us back from their land capacity analysis. Right now, they say we've got all this capacity, we can absorb everybody, but they haven't said how. They haven't shown us their capital improvements plan. They haven't shown us that they've got the regulatory system to put this in place, that they can handle the public improvements, the transportation systems. And until we know that, we can plan for the population and growth allocations that we talked about a year and a half ago, but we don't know if some of that's going to spill out of the cities because it can only handle 2/3 of what they were forecast. And all of a sudden that other population has to be accounted for somewhere. And that obviously that falls to the county. So we're delayed in our work because we're waiting on the cities. And I don't say that to criticize them. What I'm saying is we should have been on a 6-month stagger so that we could start our system later when they're more prepared to come forward. But nonetheless, we're going forward with the EIS based on our best guesses, our best assessments and direction from you. And if we have to change that somewhere in 2026, we will scramble to do so.
I have a question. We have the minutes from October the 2nd here.
Yes.
We have a quorum. Would it be in order to adopt those minutes at this meeting?
I would suggest deferring them till your October 30th meeting because we wouldn't have, this is not a noticed meeting of the full commission. It's technically a committee of committee of the whole. But we would wait until we've properly noticed a formal meeting of the planning commission where you could act on your minutes.
We have an overzealous clerk that thought we were moving forward on them. Thank you so much, Rhoda. Well, at least we have them, so thank you. Oh, there was? These are corrected? Great, thank you. So we'll take this up on the 30th.
On the 30th.
All right, thank you, Rona, for doing a super good job. Appreciate it.
Speaking of the 30th, I will not be here.
Move to cancel the meeting. Excuse me. No. Are you gonna attend remotely or not?
You'll be remote, all right.
Yeah. Well, then you will be here. You won't attend remote. You'll just be remote. You will not be found. Okay, fair enough. All right, make a note, Rona, that we need to have a quorum. So thank you. Any other issues to come for this subcommittee meeting?
Mr. Chairman, we have nothing.
All right, thank you very much. All excellent presentations. I've learned a lot. We've learned a lot, and we stand adjourned without objection. Thank you. It's 17? Rona, here you go.
I also love the Mariners. It was rough last night.